Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Media Watch. I'm your host, Dr. Savi. This week we have a special. We're going to be covering off the issue of immigration, especially in the news recently. A few weeks back we discovered a really sad bit of news where someone had died inside a container that came all the way from Afghanistan. There were lots of people inside it. Like I said, somebody died there, and the situation that they were in was absolutely terrible. This covers off a bigger issue that we have today in terms of local politics as well as international politics, and we're very honoured to have our guest back, and it's especially pertinent because not only does she work in the legal world, but she also works with Hounslow West as a newly elected councillor. So welcome back, Puneet.
Thank you for having me back on, Savi.
It's good, and it's 2 weeks in a row for you, which is nice. No, we're not counting. But, it's good that, like I said before, you have knowledge about this kind of area. Now, I want to take the viewers back to literally the last couple of years, what's actually been happening in the local area. I know we see a lot of migration. People have come to Italy as well. We've seen the past trends of people coming in from the 1950s, and even more recently we've seen Somalis come over as well. It seems there's a constant flow of migration of people to different lands to look for new opportunities. There's a term that's being used at the moment which is known as it's a kind of benefits porn, which is quite horrible, where people talk about, look at these particular people, they've come over and they come over to claim benefits rather than anything else. But if we look at this issue a few years ago where people are actually living underneath motorways, it's not just one issue about just them coming over to seek new opportunities. There's been issues, for example, around alcoholism, homelessness, and employment as well. Kind of a lot of builders will use migrant workers and not necessarily pay them their worth. What are councils doing these days in terms of kind of looking at the governance of not necessarily following standards in terms of what's been laid down? Health and safety is one thing, but just generally it's a big problem. Homelessness generally has been a problem in the world, hasn't it? And especially in the UK, there's been an issue. Even in central London, there's loads of people that live on the streets.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think if you look at, not just speaking of our borough, but any borough, is there a borough where homelessness is not an issue? I think the answer to that would be outright no. The problem we have is homelessness is an issue. We do have a housing problem generally, excluding the homelessness issue for a moment there. How do we meet, it's demand supply sort of argument? Is there enough? Are we able to do enough with the resource that we have? Now, we've got excellent charities in place. We've got St Mungo's that work quite closely with boroughs, with councils, to try and rehouse individuals. But it's about not only helping them to be rehoused or getting them out of homelessness, but as you said, addressing the core issue, the reason why they are in the position they're in. Now, as you mentioned a few weeks ago, there was the incident with the I think it was 34 people, the Afghani Sikhs that came over. Similarly, I've just been reading that a German man's been arrested in Somerset on the 19th of August, again, possibly a victim of people trafficking. Those people that come over, it's not they're coming to be a burden on the system necessarily, or they want to come because of the welfare benefits here. They're coming to this country to seek a better life. They've come, it may be a risk of persecution, but they sometimes do actually fall within those immigration kind of criteria to be able to claim asylum here, stay here, because there is a threat of that in their country. Unfortunately, we live in the UK, a country which is responsive, is receptive, and is able to deal with those sorts of issues. So we see it as a problem in our borough. As I said, I don't know a borough that don't see it as a problem, but it's how we tackle the root cause of that problem.
Okay, so does that mean better education there's lots of immigration agents in India, aren't there? And a lot of people kind of get loans. So should there be more films? Should there be more education back there? Is it a quick buck for some of these people? Some of these people can't go back because they owe money to those particular, loan sharks,
Yeah, I think what should happen is, from the UK's perspective, is making sure that those immigration companies that are in place, say we had, not too long ago, we had men that were here that were sleeping in Southall, and there was big news about that, what was going to happen with them. They were blocked off from there. But what we have to look at is those immigration companies that are in India, for example, that are benefiting from these people coming over, sadly selling all their land and still in debt to them, not able to go back. why are those immigration agencies or companies able to get them the visas and the means of coming over if there isn't a real threat? So the UK need to be more stringent at that point to make sure that they're not able to come here if there is no real need for them to be coming here.
I had an interesting thing that someone said to me recently. They were having some family relatives come over, and this immigration thing seems to be confused because there was the amount of scrutiny that was looked at their application. They were just coming over for 2 weeks for a wedding. They'd applied for a visa twice, right? And on both occasions, I think the first occasion they were rejected, the second time around they did get it. What was really weird was they took the money first time around and had to pay twice. You know, ultimately, like I said before, they got their visa. But do you think it's kind of paranoia? Just actually spreads into people that are kind of normal everyday tourists who just want to get a visa to come over to attend a wedding. What's really weird is I think in the UK, if you apply for a visa, you get your money back if you get rejected. In places like India, they keep the money, which is certainly kind of, you know, you almost think, you wouldn't want to think it's a business situation, but sometimes that bit of confusion doesn't really help. The fact that people that are genuine tourists versus people that are just coming over to work and go back, and there may be also tourists, inverted commas, who are coming over and staying longer than in theory they actually declared on their forms. This obviously poses an issue about whether or not their kids are sick or they're sick themselves. You know, what can they do in terms of getting, you know, those benefits? And sometimes there's lots of fraudulent issues as well, aren't there? People have got national insurance numbers, they're claiming benefits. Do you think that political parties at the end of the day are using this just as a kind of a, you know, just as a side issue, just as a distraction from the main issues that they've actually got? Because if you look at it from a purely numerical perspective, it's not really a massive number, is it? Benefits fraud is not really massive, is it?
It's. I don't know the actual statistics as they stand now, but I'll go on what you're saying, Savi. It's not massive, but it's obviously frustrating if you're an Indian citizen, you are coming over just to attend a wedding. It's quite an important wedding to you, and you're being scrutinised through the system, having to pay 2 or 3 times to be able to get your visa, of course. But there was a time, and I strongly believe that in the UK just generally, be it under the coalition government, Labour, we were too open to letting people come over, and there was no sort of boundaries. And when they come over, I'm not saying all of them, but the ones that do come over as tourists, inverted commas, that are not actually tourists, and they are coming here to use the benefit system to, you know, be on the welfare, you know, try and gain from that and never go back. It's because we weren't able to tackle the problem now we're getting a bit too tight. So it's where do you strike the balance? So it's very difficult for political parties to say yes or no because they don't want to let too many people in, so they're strain on the system, but they don't want to discourage people from coming because obviously we're here to keep our tourism, our economy thriving, and that's only going to happen if we let people come.
If you talk about economic situation, and it's proven statistically that the more immigrants you get into a country, they actually enrich, not necessarily culturally, but also the financial base of the country grows because they will tend to be more hardworking, striving to kind of survive for their families. So it's kind of a good bit of energy, and you could argue there's a lot of jobs that people don't want to do that they end up doing, or there's a kind of an underlying economy that no one really talks about in terms of helpers in the house or people that are being paid cash to do gardening and stuff. And even if you look at the building industry as well, we mentioned housing earlier on. The amount of construction projects that are going on, whether it be people that have bought land and rebuilding their house, or they've bought land and rebuilding it and putting loads of flats there, quite a lot of the workers, quite interesting actually, it's not just a UK problem. If you go to places like Dubai, there are problems there where people are coming over from India, working there, not getting paid very much, working really squalid conditions, and then exploited, and then they go back. But they're getting more money there than they would necessarily in their own country. Do you think that we have a similar thing in the UK? Do you think there are a lot of people living together and not necessarily, getting paid what they're worth, and builders exploit that? Because I remember a few years ago I was talking to health and safety executive I was at a conference to do with another subject, and there happened to be someone there, and she was saying to me that people have accidents and problems, and people are not necessarily given safety goggles, or and I'm not saying that the people that are working don't ask for it, but isn't it the right of the builder who's employing these people to say, I want to protect this person, rather than put him up a ladder, which is a bit wobbly, and the guy might fall off,
I think onus, really it's for the builder, as you said, in that circumstance, who's employing them to take on that responsibility. But in the same, from their perspective, and I know it happens everywhere, I know we have cleaners, nannies, builders, in most kind of domestic jobs, we have people that are here, are being exploited, are getting money cash in hand, so it's not being declared, they're not in the system, so nothing can be done. Now, if they then come forward and say, you know, we're being exploited for X, Y, Z reason, but you can't expect the same protection as a normal person in this country.
They've got a catch-22 situation, because if they come forward, then it's a risk to them.
To be set back.
In the same way that, you know, the people who are actually employing them are actually saying, well, you know, you better not say anything and I'm going to pay you the going rate. You know, kind of it works two ways, doesn't it? You know?
But if they've got a genuine reason, then I think, you know, if we could cry out to them and say to them that, yes, you should come forward, then that is the message I'd be saying to all of them. If you've got a genuine reason why you can't return to the country you've come from, then of course come forward. We're a welcoming country here. Everything will be done to try and make their asylum application, if it be that, whatever sort of application they're trying to put in, to help them through the process. But if you've come here and you know full well that you could be living a similar or same life and you've only come because the grass looked green on the other side, or you did want to benefit from the welfare system and so forth, then, you know, you would be caught out by the system, and unfortunately you can be and you will be in that catch-22 situation, because you've got to make money, you've got to feed yourself, and if this is the only route you've got, you don't have much of an
it's easy for us to talk because we sit in a studio and, you know, kind of, you know, try to wear nice clothes and whatever and have jobs, you know, that, you know, we don't know the situation from another perspective, who may have been born into poverty and they're looking to strive to a better life. Do you think the UK is a place which has got, it's just more open in terms of, is it easier to come to the country for asylum, do you think? Is that the reason why, do you think that's actually just a kind of a picture that's been painted, but it's just the same as in other countries? The UK seems to be pictured as being a good place to go to get asylum.
I think so. I think it is a picture painted that is maybe not wholly true. However, we do have, you know, instances of people being brought over via ferries, or, you know, brought through different routes, so the Eurotunnel, or, you know, how we've had the incident now in Tilbury. So it's a place where people think they can come and something will happen.
In this day and age, we see a container full of people, right, and one person dying there. Any death is unacceptable. But what does that show in terms of policing, Coast Guard, the traffickers using all kinds of methods to get people in the door? What does that show? Does that mean that we haven't done enough investment in actual Interpol, you know, the international police, to have a look at this kind of stuff? Or is it just impossible? You know, it's going to happen maybe in, you know, another 2-3 years' time, it will still continue to happen.
No, I think it is possible, and I don't think enough's being done. I don't know if it's because we haven't invested enough, or because the people that are doing those jobs aren't doing them to the standard that they should be doing them, whatever the argument there. But I think what's quite important is that, not saying that people should do that and that's the way to come over, but what's very good about the UK, I can't speak from any other country's perspective, is that we here sitting in the UK will look at those people that have come in those conditions and think, why did they feel they had to be put in that container, and this was the only way out, to be in a container for however long, be dehydrated, suffer with hypothermia. There's a reason why they've come through that way, and we've got to look at it, and why, you know, you've got to just assess it, whereas maybe some countries don't offer that assessment. Maybe some countries would be ruthless and say, return back to where you've come from. You've come here illegally.
I mean, I think someone was saying to me that the figure's quite, there's only a few thousand Sikhs remaining in Afghanistan. I think there's been separate programs that have been done on this, but anyway, the reason that they've given for their asylum is religious persecution, right? I mean, it applies to maybe the Hindus and the Christians that are in that country as well. And the irony is that the West has sent so much money and resources and army into Afghanistan to help sort that country out, yet the country itself, in terms of its political powers, are not making it easy for the citizens who've been there for hundreds of years. I think, you know, Afghani Sikhs have been there for many hundreds of years. They've got a long history of, you know, their contribution to that society, and they've settled down in those countries, in that particular country. And, you know, you kind of think, well, is there a discrimination in their own country that, you know, they're running away from? Because then the only thing they see is to get out of that country by any means that they can, you know? Which kind of really begs the question that maybe we're not aware of all the issues that people are being, you know, confronted with, you know? That there is a major issue about racism you know?
Yeah, I think there definitely is. As you said, there's only a few thousand, if we're looking at that particular example, only a few thousand Afghani Sikhs left there. Why? Why is that the case? Why are they having to flee like this? And from that example, it is because it's been reported by one, there's a leader in an association there who has said that, their own children aren't able to go to schools there, they're being tortured, tormented. So people are saying enough's enough. How do you tackle that racism? It seems like what the Afghani Sikhs have been doing and now continue to doing, as there is only a few thousand, is leaving. That's very sad because, as you said, there's been lots of investment there. But if that's the only way they think they can carry on with their lives without dying, suffering treatment that's, akin to torture, then maybe that's all they can do. But how do you tackle that racism? I have no idea.
What do you think? I know the Gurdwara's done a great job there in East London, and it's fantastic that they went there to help. They provided food, they provided nappies, they provided support as well. And I don't know what's going to happen going forward. Do you think there's a role of Gurdwaras? I know there's a brilliant group known as SWAT. They do lots of work with the homeless from all denominations, and they spend a lot of time in London. They go to Brighton, they go to all kinds of places to help out. And do you think that the Gurdwaras have a role to play in terms of their role in not necessarily helping their community, which is what the good extension of Gurdwara actually is? That's what their aim is at the end. Do they connect with the councils?
They connect insofar as, we have close connections with our local Gurdwaras. I know the whole borough, and whichever political party are very much associated with the Gurdwaras.
So you don't just turn up to the election day and actually do your speeches up front and hope for votes. You do more than that.
Yeah, no, we do. But the thing is,
you've got to get the police person in as well. So the police guy's got to be at the front as well. So
yeah,
I'm your local policeman, and
Yeah, no, I think what it is the Gurdwaras are no, not too cynical. The Gurdwaras are very connected. They are. They're trying to join forces and try and help as much as they can. I think it's also for politicians, local or national, to go to these associations. For example, like I've set up so that we have one of my surgeries every month in our local Gurdwara, which is in our ward. Another one, which is a place which is a day centre, so anybody could come. I will set up one that's in a mandir and one that's in a mosque. That then gives everybody the opportunity to come forward. But most importantly, if somebody is homeless from our community, we're going to see that as a problem when we're there at the Gurdwara. You only see things if you're present there. I think that's very important. If Gurdwaras and all religious groups could come forward and say, look, we're here. If there is somebody from our religious group, we're here to help if there's anything we can do. And there should be more give from these sorts of religious organisations to places like SWAT, because they are helping a vast number of people.
So do they actually put their money into a place where they can actually go and shower up and then we're talking obviously about the extremes of immigration where someone's come over and they're either going for asylum or they're suffering because they come over and they can't afford to eat anymore, because there is that situation as well. So should that be a joint effort from local councils and places of worship where they can put some funds into a central place and open up somewhere where they can get food and they can get help and they can get put back on to whatever direction they want to go in, whether they want to go back or they want to kind of settle down or someone look at their visa. Where do you see that? Do you think that's something that should be driven by the council?
I think personally it should be something that is driven by the religious organisation. I feel because it would be the person that was claiming asylum. So say it was the Afghani Sikhs, they would want the Gurdwara to intervene and help. But I definitely think there should be open links between the Gurdwara and then councils that say X has been granted asylum. How are we then going to help them moving forward? I think we're fortunate that we have Gurdwaras in this country. We have societies, we have presidents of Gurdwaras that are in the position where they have access to a lot of funds. They are able to help people. So those funds should be the first port of call to help people, and then that should be transpired through to councils to put them on lists for, if it's a waiting list, who's going to go into what home. So there is a smooth process for these people, because as you said, some of them are facing very, very bad conditions. They can't eat, they don't have money to drink, and it's those basic communities that they're asking for. So if there was an effort from both and they work together, then there's definitely a solution.
Okay. Although I would say that sometimes, and I did kind of pitch this to some kind of mayors, and I did say to them that when we had that situation under the bridge where people were sleeping under the bridge, it was like, is it a political issue? Who's the council that owns it? is it Gurdwara that needs to get involved to help them out? Then ultimately it was a SWAT group that came and they used to come every day there to help them out and leave some food and socks. And even when I was with another group, and I went there and said, look, take the socks out of the packets because they might end up selling the socks. So they've got the experience of knowing what to do and how to do it and how to counsel people as well. It's, like I said, it's not just one problem, it's a major issue, and to kind of like to resolve that, not necessarily needs to have these groups, that you need specialists involved, whether it be health specialists or other people to come forward and to treat these people. And that is obviously going to cost money to do, isn't it?
Yeah, so it's where that comes
come out
from.
of the coffers, isn't it, really? It's a difficult one. So let's go back to the whole situation of immigration in general. Immigration is good for a country, right?
Yeah, well, it boosts the economy, as everybody will be aware. It's without it, tourism fails. And if we don't have tourism, especially in this country, it would have a drastic impact on our economy. So where we're trying to strengthen our economy, we need tourism. We need people to be coming here and going to visit Big Ben and go on the London Eye. So, yeah, immigration is a good thing, but if it's
immigration
controlled.
in the context of tourism,
yes.
But immigration in the context of people coming here and staying here and making their future, do you think there's a shift in the UK? We're talking UK. I think generally there is a discussion. There's a lot of people that have gone to US as well. A lot of people have gone to Canada. Do you think that the people that have been there longer suddenly become, even if they're non-white, they become more protected and say, oh, look, these are fresh people that have come over? Do you think there's a kind of almost like a split in society where there's the new people that have come over fresh, whatever they're called, and there's the people that have been there for a while, my dad was here in 1958. So there are people that are kind of saying, well, should they, there's almost like a divide in society. And so therefore people could become more conservative to say, they deserve to be here more than they deserve to be here, Do you think that's happening?
I think that definitely is happening.
More to the right, saying they don't deserve it where we deserve it. Well, who are you? You were an immigrant once as well, weren't you? It's almost like, I read an article in The Economist just a couple of years ago. They wrote an article saying, today's landlords are the people that are in Southall are yesterday's immigrants, aren't they? The landlords that actually get their original shops and split them into 15 shops and then lease out 15 shops. They're making 15 times the amount of money. So good luck to them. I'm not being critical. I'm just saying it's interesting that, that divide now exists with people with loads of money being here for a while and those who've just arrived who deserve a chance.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I think that definitely is a problem. And I think those people that are the immigrants of yesterday, I mean, my parents too came in around 1958 or so. But, I mean, when you're looking at that, you've got to think, firstly, those people that are making those remarks and think it's not okay for people to come over here because they're already here settled and, oh my God, this is going to have an effect on our welfare system and our taxes and so forth, that those people are not educated. They don't have the knowledge. They're very arrogant, selfish and ignorant because you came here one day. If those people are coming to work, I think if we were talking about it from a European perspective, I honestly believe that opening of the borders was an excellent thing with most countries. To the extent that those people are coming here to do jobs that the people that are from here don't want to do. So if we've got people that are coming to do those jobs, somebody has to do those jobs. They're benefiting to our society, to our economy, to us generally through taxes and so forth. So we should be grateful that we've got people. And also, we're a country that celebrates diversity. So to celebrate diversity, you have to be happy with immigration.
Yeah, you have to be happy with immigration. And I think immigration in its different forms, as the ones that you described, but also there is this, I think there's an undercurrent, of, people deserve to be here, people don't deserve to be here, and, you need to have a kind of a quota system. So that's the kind of extremism that we're looking at. So thanks so much for coming on the show. Really appreciate it very much. I think the insights are really interesting, especially as you're dealing with these issues day to day. And it's not easy to be a counsellor, and those problems that we kind of described earlier on, alcoholism, whether it be homelessness or just simply, getting a job, when you're stuck in a country. And on top of that, you've got the layers of the different types of immigrant that you might be. You can stay for a while, you can go back, or you come on a working visa. It's a difficult one. And on top of that, you've also got the asylum issue as well, which is completely separate, because sometimes those two things get confused, whether it be workers that are genuinely coming over or people that are coming here for asylum who are, fleeing a situation of persecution. And then, so ultimately you have to think about the fact that, if you put yourself in their shoes, what would you do? We're all quite, thinking, oh, it's great that we've got the life that we have, as the words of that Phil Collins song, it's just another day in paradise. Well, thanks so much for joining us on this Media Watch special, where we covered one subject in detail. We will do this every now and again, rather than going through all the news. Sometimes it's good to just delve in and deep dive into a subject and try and get an expert in to give us more insights into day-to-day challenges. So thanks very much, Puneet, appreciate that. So until next time, we look forward to seeing you. That's all from me. Waigu Gakalsa, Waigu Fateh.